We're now going to move immediately to the third panel. And in order to do that, I'm going to introduce Shelly Lowe, who's going to be the moderator for that panel. It has been a privilege to work with Shelly for the past couple years, and I'm looking forward to many more years of working with Shelly, both as part of Radcliffe and as part of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. Shelly is the executive director of the Harvard University Native American program and an enrolled member of the Navajo Nation from Ganado, Arizona. She, before coming to Harvard, served as the assistant dean for Native American Affairs in the Yale College Dean's Office and the director of the Native American Cultural Center at Yale. She has also been recently appointed to the National Council of Humanities. It's a really major honor for Harvard and for her, appointed directly by President Barack Obama. She is, I think as many people, Native students, alumni in the community around here would know, the lifeblood of our indigenous community at Harvard. So for everything, Shelly, thank you, and we're really looking forward to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Good afternoon, Yat Shelly Lowe Yanishia, Belagana Nishle, Nanastasia Tachini Bashachi, Belagana Dashache, do Trabaha Dashanale, Locantia de Nasha. So, good afternoon, everybody. I have the distinct honor of introducing our third panel for the day, which I'm going to borrow some words from my fellow moderator, Dr. Adrienne King. This is a hella cool panel. And I know a lot of you are here to see this panel in particular. I do have some unfortunate news to tell you that one of our panelists will actually have to run out right after this, and maybe I won't say who that is yet. So you guys can still be super excited. These are Rad Natives right here, both with the hashtag and without the hashtag. So please be tweeting all you want while we're going through this. Our first speaker is Kristiana Kahakauwila. She is Kanaka Maoli. She's a writer, the Lisa Goldberg Fellow at the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study this year. We have Frank Waln, Sicangu Lakota, musician, rapper, very popular, I know. I wanted to pause for lots more applauses, but we'll wait. And Matika Wilbur, Swinomish Tulalip photographer, creator of Project 562. I know her laughter in a few minutes is going to catch you as well. So without delay, Tiana, I'm going to turn it over to you.
I'd like to start with gratitude for the thinking, the innovation, the rabble-rousing, and the endurance represented here, both by the speakers and I was going to say by the audience, and I didn't mean it like how that was about to sound. I mean the endurance of being Native and being alive. I'm going to reorient a little and start with some creative work. The first pages of my book, This is Paradise, a collection of short stories set in and about contemporary Hawaii. And then I'm going to reorient you again in another way with these slides. This is Paradise. Mid-morning, the lifeguards fan across the beach and push signposts into the sand. The same picture is on all of them. A stick figure, its arms aloft, its circle head drowning in a set of triangle waves. Caution, the sign reads, dangerous undertow. We ignore it. We've gone out at Makaha and Makapu'u before. We've felt yokes pull us under. We are not afraid of the beaches and breaks here in Waikiki. We are careless, in fact, brazen. So when we see her studying the warning, chewing the right side of her lip, we laugh. Just like the kind. Tourists, yeah. The tourist girl is white. They're all white to us unless they're black. She has light brown hair, a pointed nose, eyebrows neatly plucked into a firm line. She wears a white bikini with red polka dots, triangle cut top, ruffled bottom. We shake our heads at her. Our ehu hair, pulled into ponytails, bounces against our necks. Our bikinis are carefully cut pieces with crossback straps and lean bottoms. We surf in these, sister. We don't have time for ruffles and ruching, but she does. Like every other tourist, her blue and white striped hotel towel labels her for what she is. So why do we look at her as we pass? Why do we notice her out of the hundreds of others? Do we already know she's marked, special in some way? At the high tide line, Cora Jones and Kyla Ka'ava pull on rash guards to protect against the trade winds, which are wailing this morning. The rest of us pretend we don't have chicken skin. We strap our leashes to our ankles, careful to piece the Velcro together, and then we jump on our boards and feel them skim across the surface of the water. Arching our backs, our hips pressed into hard fiberglass, we dig the water with our hands. We raise one foot for balance. And because we know we are silhouetted against the horizon, we hold our heads high, we point our toes. Our bodies curve upward like smiles, beckoning those on shore to follow. When we look back, the tourist girl is approaching the ocean's edge. She walks into the water, the small waves lapping at her feet, ankles, knees, chest. We see her dip her shoulders into the whitewash. We don't tell her to stay away from the retaining wall in front of baby queens or that today the current is moving Eva to Diamond Head. We paddle, and in a moment, we've left her behind. That story is told by three groups of women: the surfer girls who you just heard, hotel housekeepers from the Federated States of Micronesia, and Hawaiian career women. Their voices weave together, circle one another, much like a Greek chorus. My goal was, from the start, to reorient the reader, to unsettle them perhaps, but to force the reader to see Waikiki, the ultimate tourist Shangri-La, from a Native perspective. In school, the world map that usually gets taught is the one you can see here, centered on the Atlantic Ocean, on the land masses that surround it. In it, the Pacific is cut in two, pushed to the periphery, made half, not whole. Here is a Pacific-centered world in which the great, really seafaring nation of Oceania takes center stage. Another map familiar to most of you, United States, no tribal lands delineated, no Hawaii or Alaska. This one's fun to me because Hawaii is in the Gulf of Mexico, which, and here I like to call it boxed Hawaii, overlaid on Mexico. And then in the bottom, the second one is what I like to call oddly vertical Hawaii. It's not even oriented correctly. Okay, here we are back at Oceania. These maps and this geography is how children are taught about the US. And I don't need to press too hard on this point because I know everyone here realizes just what a falsity that is. What a lie it is, that these are the borders that we teach to our children is a problem. The Pacific writer, anthropologist, wonderful thinker, Apele Hauofa, in his paper, Our Sea of Islands, says there's a gulf of difference between viewing the Pacific as islands in a far sea and as a sea of islands. He goes on to argue for the largesse of Oceania. He calls it, in fact, the largest nation in the world, and he thinks of all the people within Oceania as a single seafaring nation. And so it's a really powerful way to think about what happens when we bring our energies together. I'm going to give you just 2 more slides to think about as I move into the rest of my talk. This first notes some false dualities, ways of very often indigenous people are taught. They are romantic or tragic, scientific or traditional. It tends to be whites get history and we get culture. Our record is one that is oral but not written. And the final slide I'll linger on is a Hawaiian word, mo'olelo. It encompasses a lot, and it breaks up those false dualities. It means story, history, tradition, legend, yarn, a log. It means research, public record, private journal. It also means the succession of a talk. Because we're at Harvard, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my education and how I became a writer, and it relates back to the slides I showed you at the beginning and how we think about pedagogy. You know, when an undergraduate here tells me they go to school in Cambridge, I know they're really talking about Harvard. So similarly, I went to college in New Jersey. And at this New Jersey school, I had a really mixed experience. It opened my world in a lot of ways. It was like living in a foreign country. There was a new language to speak, a new fashion to wear, and there was a different way of even physically moving through space. I read a ton in those years. I was assigned brilliant work, Russian novelists, French poets, good stuff. And at some point in my sophomore year, I read Edward Said's Orientalism, and the idea of the gaze and of reversing the gaze became one of the first moments where I felt like I was glimpsing myself in a text. Perhaps I was already off stage, but I knew I had been there a moment ago. I majored in comparative literature with a focus on Maghreb and post-colonial French literature, and I minored in creative writing. 4 years at the #1 university in the nation, and not once did I read an indigenous writer. Not once did I even hear the names Leslie Marmon Silko, N. Scott Momaday, Thomas Kang. And in creative writing courses, we focused on American literature and the American short story. There was gender balance. There was not racial balance. Fast forward 5 years, and I'm at the University of Michigan studying in their Master's of Fine Arts program in creative writing. I got word that there was a Pacific Studies program. Granted, it was housed in the American Studies department, which is a little weird for all of Oceania to be under the American Studies umbrella, but it did exist. I enrolled in canoe cultures with Vicente Diaz, and for the first time in my study of post-colonial literature and history, the course started with an indigenous perspective. It started with a chant, a seafaring song from the island of Pohnpei in the Federated States of Micronesia, Vince's home. For the first time, I was in a classroom that wasn't post-colonial but decolonial, where the professor looked like me, knew what it was like to be me, both outsider and insider, to the university and academic complex. He oriented himself to the island, to the ocean instead of to land. He grounded himself and his teaching in Oceania. He and others introduced me to the great Pacific writers, Maori writer Patricia Grace, Apele Hauofa, Hawaiian professor and historian John Osorio. I also read Silko, Mamade King, met Phil Deloria, read Vine Deloria Jr., Sherman Alexie, Joy Harjo. I can go on. It changed my life, and it changed my writing. I threw out everything I had written before that class, and I started, for the first time in my life, writing about Hawaii. Writing about what it meant to be Kanaka Maoli, but born in California, to have split my childhood between continent and island, to try and understand why my dad decided to leave Hawaii, and why my uncles and aunties stayed, and what that means for their children, for me and my cousins. Writing for me is always about a question about what I don't understand. I didn't understand really what it meant to be Kanaka. I knew what it felt like, and what it felt like was that I was never enough, a feeling that had been emphasized at Princeton. I moved to Hawaii after I graduated from Michigan. I lived in Honolulu. I flew over to Maui to visit the family often and see my grandmother, who was ill. She died a year after I moved there. I was in Ohio at a friend's wedding when I got the call that she had passed. My family held off the funeral until my dad and I could fly home to them. In writing my first book, This is Paradise, I was trying to understand what it meant to be loved that much, what it meant to love myself, all myself, my indigenous self, my Hapa self. I was trying to understand how, no matter how far my dad or I got from that land, that island, somehow it was always waiting for us, forgiving us, loving us, and wanting us back. And no matter how often we went back, no matter how long I lived in Honolulu, how I'd always be looking over the ocean at the continent and wondering what I was missing out on over there. Like many indigenous, I've realized I live in a liminal space. I see the world from a liminal position, a world not filled with dualities as many classes on indigenous peoples will posit, but one in which, as a contemporary indigenous person, I upend the framework, and I can have all of it. Science, culture, tradition, technology, past, present, oral, written, myth, research, legend, fact, story, story, story. All of it at the same time. For me, storytelling, mo'olelo, holds all that. To close, I'd like to read just a couple more paragraphs from the story, This is Paradise. The excerpt is from the perspective of Native Hawaiian career women, and I'd like to dedicate this to Matika here. It's hard work to be a leader. It's hard, important, and beautiful work. In this passage, there's an honest moment of exhaustion from the narrators. But I hope you also get a sense of their strength, their vibrance, and their unapologetic aliveness. Despite our tendency toward culinary laziness, our exhaustion is not allowed to overtake us this evening. Tonight, we're celebrating. Laura just submitted her proposal for a LEED certified resort on Maui, and we hear her firm will win the bid. Kiana Naone was promoted to politics editor at the Honolulu Advertiser. And Esther will take the lead on a high-profile murder case that all but promises her making partner in a year. After years of part-time jobs and student loans and late nights with the desk lamp's yellow light on our books, we've made it, or we are making it, or we're close to saying we will make it. It doesn't hurt that we're from here. We are considered by our peers to be local women who've done well, left but come back, dedicated their education and mainland skills to putting this island right. We speak at civic club gatherings and native rights events. We are becoming pillars of the island community. We are growing into who we've always dreamt of being. But sometimes, late at night, and alone beneath the hand-stitched Hawaiian quilts we can finally afford to purchase, we wish we had followed our law and grad school boyfriends to DC or Chicago. We could have foregone being pillars. We could have been regular women. I'll leave you there.
Mitakuyapi, oyate trecha obmani e macha pelo, naha iuha chante washte nape chuza pelo. Hello relatives, my Lakota name is Walks with Young People. That was given to me by my elders a few years ago. I also go by Frank Waln. I'm a Sicangu Lakota hip-hop artist and storyteller from the Rosewood Reservation in South Dakota. And I am the product of amazing Lakota women. I was raised by my mother, Mary Waln, my grandmother, Marie Waln, and my aunties in a small community on the Rosewood Reservation in South Dakota called the He Dog community. It's pretty rural, it's pretty small, 20 houses. I was born and raised on a ranch. And I have a story to tell you guys before we get started. So I'm a hip-hop artist, but I think, like my fellow amazing panelists here, we're all just storytellers in our own rights and our own ways. Indigenous people have been the best storytellers in this world for thousands and thousands of years. That's how we're here. That's how we survived. That's how we passed on knowledge, storytelling. So we're just continuing that tradition through our art and what we do. So I have a story to start off. I was very privileged that my mother stressed education in all forms, learning in and outside of the classroom from the time I was little. So when I graduated high school, I was the first person at my high school to receive the Gates Millennium Scholarship. I was valedictorian, and I had the opportunity to go to college. Not a lot of people where I'm from get that opportunity. The biggest high school on our reservation has a 75% dropout rate. Our entire reservation has an 80% unemployment rate. We live in one of the poorest counties in the country. You know, that poverty keeps us trapped for a reason. But I had this opportunity. And I first used it to go study pre-med at Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska. I did that for 2 years. I always knew I wanted to help. I always knew I wanted to heal. And the way I saw the world when I was 18, the only way I thought I could do that was to be a doctor. So I did that for 2 years, and then I decided to follow my passion of music. I love music. I've been playing piano since I was 6. I've been writing, producing, recording music since I was 15. And so I decided to follow that passion, and that took me to an art school in Chicago, Columbia College, where I graduated from. And the first week I was there in Chicago, something happened that changed my life. And I think a lot of the indigenous students in this room could probably relate to this story. So I get on the elevator of the dorm I'm living in, and this non-native girl gets on the elevator with me. And I'm living in downtown Chicago, and I'd never even seen a skyscraper until this point in my life. Our reservation is the size of Rhode Island, and we have one stoplight on our whole res. So I'm just in shock, all types of cultural shock. You know, I could really relate to what Tiana was saying. It's like you're in a different place, that even how you move is different. You have to learn how to move in that space. And so I'm on this elevator. This girl gets on, and she says, "You have really pretty hair. What are you?" I said, "Thank you. I'm Lakota. I'm Native American." And she looked at me confused, and she said, "You guys still exist?" You know, we laugh, but there are too many college students in this country that think Native Americans are extinct. College-educated adults think we don't exist. Imagine what that does to you when you're trying to relearn, remember, reconnect to an identity that the government has tried to kill, as we've been hearing all day. It's all sort of confusion, frustration, anger, pain. Also being proud of where you come from, being proud of that culture. So I started writing songs about that. And I'll speak a little bit on why I think hip-hop resonates with so many indigenous youth. You know, hip-hop is a black culture. It was born in New York City. Out of a time, the Bronx, they were building the Bronx Expressway through this community. They were displacing people. It was violent displacement. It was colonialism, basically. It was genocide. And out of it came this beautiful culture of hip-hop, dance, graffiti, music, the way they dressed. And when we were growing up on the reservation, you know, I grew up disconnected from my culture. I grew up with my hair short. I grew up not going to ceremony because my great-grandparents were the last people in my family to be fluent in our language and to participate in ceremony. And where I'm from, you know, it was illegal. Jesuits would patrol our reservation, and if they caught us going into sweat lodges, singing songs, they would call the police. We'd get persecuted, thrown in insane asylums for Indians. They said we were worshiping the devil. So out of that history, there was a lot of shame with being Lakota, where I was from growing up. There was a lot of shame with men having long hair. There was a lot of shame about men wearing earrings. There was a lot of shame about being proud of who you are and where you come from. And I understand where that's coming from my elders. I understand what they went through. Even though I may never know what that feels like, I understand where that shame comes from. And hip-hop gave me a safe space to reclaim my indigeneity, because the thing about hip-hop as a culture is you can be whoever you want to be in that space. You bring to it who you are. And so it gave me a space to look at my own identity. And around the same time I was 18, 19, I started reconnecting to my culture, my ceremonies, language. My mother, my aunties, you know, they were doing the same. We were all doing that around the same time. So, you know, and also, you know, within hip-hop, there's the tradition of storytelling. And, you know, that culture was kind of born out of colonization, so I think it resonated with us on a lot of Native youth all across this country. I'm one of many Native hip-hop artists. There's tons of brilliant artists. And so I want to talk a little bit about how art, how performance gives me that space to almost rupture and rage and let some of that pain and that energy and those emotions, the love, the joy, everything that I'm experiencing out in a healthy way. You know, because to tell indigenous people to not be angry, to not feel, to not be frustrated, is to tell us to not be human beings. How could we not be angry about 500 years of colonization and genocide? How could we not be frustrated? How could we not feel pain? And it's not just history, it results in the traumas that we face. You know, the traumas of people that we love, the own traumas that we experience as people. So I think, you know, I needed a healthy outlet, and this art form gave me that healthy outlet. So right now, I'm really interested in exploring healing and love through my music. And, you know, Tiana even spoke about that. Right now, I'm on artist residency at the University of Delaware. I'm visiting music classes, but I'm also going into Nemours Children's Hospital, which is a hospital for children who are terminally ill. And I'm doing music therapy with kids. And we've been having a lot of discussions about what gets them through the situation they're in. And one of the most profound statements and ideas that's come out of that for me is the concept of love, and that love is the strongest force in the universe. This one girl told me, if you don't have love, you don't have anything. And I think that all the indigenous people in this room, we are a testament to the love and strength that our ancestors had. The fact that we're even alive in this room in a place like Harvard is a testament to that love. They loved us. They loved our culture. They loved the land. They loved the water. And that's why we're here. So I think about that when I write these songs, learning to love myself, learning to love my community. It's a task. I'm probably one of the youngest panelists here. I'm 26, and I'm going through it. Even though I'm here in Harvard, and I get to travel the world and do what I love, the people I love, we're still connected to that. My mom is still at home suffering from poverty. I have cousins addicted to meth. You know, this is real. This isn't just history for us. This pain is real. And I found that when I've been able to express this and write this in songs, and my outlet has become an inlet for a lot of other indigenous people. And I never expected that to happen, but it's a really beautiful thing. So, you know, I just want to comment on that concept of love as well, and say that my grandfather, Robert Sonny Waln, he passed away when I was 3. He only had an 8th grade education. He had to drop out of school at 16 and lie about his age to join the military to provide for his family, because I come from a place where there's little to no opportunities, and that's what he had to do to survive. And he went off to the Korean War for 4 years, came back, married my grandmother, raised a family of 11 with an 8th grade education. And now his grandson's standing here getting paid to speak at Harvard University. We are a testament to that love. So I'm going to be honest with you guys, my audience is not Harvard, it's not white people. I'm making songs for those kids on the reservation, those kids who are going through this, because I think they don't have the privilege to come to this space. So I'm a performer. I'm gonna do a song for you guys. I'm gonna finish with a song. And I would like to encourage all the young Native people or any people of color in this room who are gonna go on to be the leaders of our communities to remember those kids. Remember the land and water that we live on and that we live off of. And remember those elders whose shoulders we stand on to get to where we are today. Because we wouldn't be here without that love. And I think, we all need to embark on that process of healing, because we're coming from communities with so much trauma and so much pain, and you need to acknowledge that pain to heal. And so I'm gonna do a new song. It's called Wild West, and it's a good example of the things we experience at home. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, a young lady. Her name's Cody DeNoyer. She lives back home. She's an incredible singer, incredible artist. And we were talking about home and just all the stuff our relatives are going through, and we both concluded that there's things where I'm from that will kill you, and there's things that will save our lives. There's things that are killing people I love there, but there's things that I can't get anywhere else in the world. And we wrestle with that. And so I think this song is an example of that. It's called Wild West. And this song is about my home. I come from a place they called the Wild West, cowboys and Indians, they said. It's still the Wild West. We're still fighting that battle. It just has a different face. And Wild West was always told from the cowboy's perspective. So I guess this is a perspective of a young indigenous person in the contemporary Wild West. I got 500 years to get off the dome. My mama was my strength, pops was a rolling stone. So let me in my zone, throw this dog a bone. Cause I spit bars for those native kids at home who got wounds and scars, who dreams go far. You got a jump shot, you're a red superstar. Take a cruise in the car, disregard the law. We don't know no better when adults withdraw. Bumping first of the month on the first of the month. From the womb to the hearse, dirt ensures what I want. Selling food stamps, I could give you 40 for 20. All these damn handouts, but ain't no way to make money. This whack 80% unemployment rate ain't no way to make sure my family's straight. My cousin did a crime, feds investigate. We still face genocide in this colonial state. Our ceremonies were banned, they cut our grandpa's braids. Took them to that boarding school where my grandpa stayed. Cut them off from the ways that their grandpas prayed. They're trying to build a pipeline over my grandpa's grave. There ain't no stopping this res life from blinding us. Ain't no stopping these problems from finding us. Still I run with nowhere to go. A rosebud with nowhere to grow. In the wild, wild west, y'all. The wild west. Living that res life. So stressed in the wild, wild west, y'all. The wild west. We're living that res life. Birth of a rebel, I revel where others living in peril with several flows. I'm arm wrestling with your devil, disheveled but never settle. Y'all can't get on my level, give me bass, give me treble. I'm troubled but never tremble, rekindle the 7 council fires. Keeper of the flame, land of the burnt thigh, it's even in my name. I'm a symbol, Sicangu is how I rumble. I may stumble but my people are warriors, so I'll never crumble. Survivors of genocide residing in the trap. I used to keep this inside until I decide to rap. My ancestors ain't died for me to lie on my back. Can't take it sitting down, instead I'm fighting back. Buck your system, buck your capitalism. You took the land, made us sick and gave us alcoholism. You took away our wisdom, you took away our health. We're gonna get it back and we're gonna honor ourselves. In the wild, wild west, y'all, the wild west. Living that res life, so blessed. In the wild, wild west, y'all, the wild west. We're living that res life. You force our culture underground, but you ain't stopping no one now. We're stronger when we know it now. We know it now. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh man, I'm all crying. Good afternoon. Dear ones, friends, relatives, good afternoon. My name's Matika. I'm from the Swinomish and Tulalip tribe, and I'm super, super honored to be amongst such special, talented, intelligent, beautiful people. I'd like to acknowledge the ancestors of this land, the Massachusetts, Nipmuc, and Wampanoag people. We raise our hands to you. Tigwitsi, thank you for allowing us to be here on your land. And I raise my hands to Miss Shelly and Jason and all of the organizers of this event, and especially our young Native students here at Harvard. We respect you, we love you, we want you to stay here. And I'm here to ask you if we can learn to see as human beings. Does the image actually affect our lives and the lives of those around us? And as citizens of the world, can we use images to encourage and inspire one another? How can we, my friends, shape our perceptions to change the world? Currently, there is not one single source, be it publication, website, or exhibition, accessible to the public that provides visual representation of every tribe in the United States. Project 562 aims to change that. Why am I doing this? I taught visual arts for 5 years at the tribal school on my res. Our children needed effective curriculums and stories that could transmit light, love, beauty, truth, but there wasn't. There were none. We still teach our children that Columbus discovered America. The American imagination produces leathered and feathered savagery less than. The toll of addiction, abuse, and unnatural deaths of my students overwhelmed me. I buried 19 students in 4 years. And after so much loss of potential, I'd sit in lodges with my fellow teachers, and we'd be sitting there praying for our babies, begging the Creator to help us, feeling a hopelessness and despair that I can barely speak about. These are the images that we see when we're represented in massive media. This is the experience that our children are having every day. Native American stereotypes are ingrained in the fabric of our country as historical people, as tribal and inferior. Most contemporary depictions of Native Americans include noble savage, redskins, leathered and feathered spiritual being as fit for mascots, and such portrayals degrade popular understanding. This is what happens when you Google search Native American this morning. This algorithm represents the image people are seeking and the image that people are clicking on. This is what you expect when you search Native American. My mentor, Stephanie Freiberg, she doesn't know she's my mentor. I call her that because I've read everything she's wrote. She's from my tribe, and I secretly stalk her. She did this incredible study. She went to all these tribes around the country. She showed kids pictures of Native American, African American, Asian American, and every time they were shown an image of a Native person, their self-esteem went down by 60%. Shockingly, when the image of an Indian is shown to the white counterpart, their self-esteem is raised. For centuries, our people have called for authentic indigenous images and stories of our resiliency, of the sacredness of land, of the meaning and value of our knowledge. These are the stories and so many more that live within Project 562. And they're the voices that can now be heard if we seek them. Like this one. This is Uncle John Kekiana Ana. He's Kanaka Maoli from the independent nation of Hawaii. John is pictured on the west side of Kauai at his Kalo farm that has been in his family for several generations. To John and other Kanakamalis, Kalo is of supreme importance, defined in the Kumulipu or Hawaiian creation chant as the plant from which Hawaiians were formed. In 2002, the University of Hawaii genetically modified Kalo and patented their hybridized taro, charging farmers for the new type of seed. John was a part of a strong indigenous opposition and coalitions and peaceful protests to protect the natural ancestral Kalo. And through his activism and many others, in 2008, the state of Hawaii designated Kalo as a state plant in a bill to ban genetically modified taro and coffee in the islands of Hawaii. Over and over and over again, people ask me, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned, Matika? What have you learned from being on the road? And I often respond by saying the only thing I've fully come to understand is that our people's identities are inextricably connected to the land. We are the people of the blue-green water, the people of the tide, the people of the tall pine trees, the people that live within the forest sacred mountains, the people of the streaming tide. We're the rabbit eaters, the cattail eaters. We're the people of the longhouse. There is an indigenous people of this place as well. And what we see overwhelmingly is that our communities are always fighting for the right to maintain access to the very thing that defines us, such as this fellow. This is Raymond Matz. He's one of my heroes. You see, he's not smiling because he has all gold-busted teeth because the cops punched him all out while he was being arrested 19 times for fishing on the Klamath River in California. He belongs to the Yurok tribe, and he was one of the first to challenge the U.S. government for tribal fishing rights. He brought his case all the way to the Supreme Court, and he recalls the turning point in that case, as maybe some of you do as well. He says, we'd laid out our set nets, and from this rock here, where their people have been fishing for thousands of generations. And the feds were there with big, enormous guns, waiting for them to go pick their net. And they were kind of a little apprehensive. They didn't know what to do. They knew that if they went out to pick their net, they'd be forcefully arrested again. And for Mr. Matz, that would be his last time being arrested. And so there's a lot of commotion on the shores. And finally, after a 3-day standoff, and reporters there as well, his 89-year-old grandma said, enough of this, I'll do it. And so she got in her little canoe, and she started paddling out there and picking the net. And of course, cops came and by gunpoint demand that she stop poaching. They took pictures, went on the cover of Time magazine. They won their court case, which set precedents for the Judge Bolt decision, which gave tribes half the fish and game and wildlife and co-management of our resources. And you see, my mama's a commercial fisherwoman. And I was super, super honored to have the opportunity to thank Raymond for his bravery, for being brave enough to stand for what matters to us most. This is Miss Jenny Parker. She was a teacher for 25 years in her tribal school in Northern Cheyenne until one day federal officials came to her at the school and said, we'd like you to come down and identify a body. It was her daughter's. She'd been forcefully raped and left for dead on the side of the road. And afterwards, Jenny had a heart attack. She felt as though she was dying of a broken heart. And her granddaughter came and said, Grandma, I'm gonna take care of you. Slowly, they started walking to the end of the driveway, to the end of the road, and Jenny says, it's the love that helped her to survive such things. It's knowing that her granddaughter would need her. And I asked Jenny, what would you like me to tell the people when I show your photograph? And she said, ask them if they'll stand with us. Ask them if it matters to them. Remind them that we're still here. I want to stand up here and tell you transcendent stories of light and love and beauty, but as my friends say, if you want our beauty, you must also take our struggle. The truth is, I have heard far too many stories like Jenny's. Stories about forced sterilization, stories of rape and horror that at times make me feel like I'm suffocating and like there is no hope in Indian country. And these experiences articulate our current socioeconomic situation. Native American women are the most victimized in the country. 3 out of 4 have experienced sexual assault or domestic violence in their lifetimes. And that's my sisters, my aunties, my cousins, the Native women in this room. It's real. And for most Native women, it is not a question of if, but when. Across the border in Canada, there are an estimated 1,181 stolen sisters. Women from age 2 to 78 disappeared and never found, missing and likely murdered. There is no question we are in a very critical time of a long-standing epidemic of abuse and misuse of our Native women and children. And while our women tell me stories about race and caste and how their bodies are used to perpetuate both, high caste women are sexually restricted, reserved, if you will, while women at the bottom are sexually exploited. Native people are the only people in the country that need prove their pedigree. Still today, we face extermination policies put in place to eradicate the American Indian, which means that as a Native woman, we are faced with the complicity of choosing a mate when racist policies determine our future children's opportunity for citizenship and inclusion. We're forced in courts to define ourselves. It's time we take back the right to make decisions about ourselves. A lesson I've learned from a well-known leader in my own tribal community, Miss Deborah Parker. Part of Miss Deborah Parker. That was about to be so smooth, though, huh? If you go over to the gallery, you can see it. Who advocated on behalf of Native women during the right to reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act, and while also running a program in our community to help our victimized and abused people. When I asked her where she finds strength, she said, when you are asked to protect someone, when you are asked to protect your nation, it's what you do. You armor up, you warrior up, and you protect the women in your nation, and it's a great honor to do so. All I can do is pray that I am able to speak justice toward our missing and murdered Indigenous women, to those who are still here struggling to find out what kind of justice they will receive. To me, it will be a lifetime of this work. It will never stop because every man and woman is worth protecting. Every person deserves justice. We can do that through education. This is Dr. Mary Evelyn Bellegarde. She's from the Pueblo of Isleta and Okewingbe. She's a retired professor of education from the University of New Mexico. She's worked tirelessly to open tribal schools with Native curriculums. She's raised funds to support thousands of Native students. And she's lovely, she's charming. She feeds you green chili. And then she wants to talk about systematically engineered systems of education to eradicate us. And she says, Matika, when are we going to stop asking our children to choose between cultural education and Western education? I think we're ready to stop the assimilation process. The time to change is now. This is not Dr. Adrienne King, could you stand up, please? Everybody look back there. This is Dr. Adrienne King. I have a beautiful photo of her. And let me tell you, she's my favorite Cherokee of all time. And she's a dear friend of mine, and you'll be hearing from her later this afternoon. You don't have to keep standing, Adrienne. But I would like to acknowledge that Adrienne was one of the few that holds a doctorate in education from Harvard. And she's currently teaching at Brown and focuses on college access for Native students. Her blog, Native Appropriations, has a national and international audience as a voice on contemporary Indigenous issues. She writes about the collectivism of Native students in higher education, and she says, I want to take a moment to talk to your family, your professors, your community, your school administrators. We have a responsibility to our Native students. It is not enough to push students to enroll in college and expect them to conform to the norms and expectations of spaces that are not meant for them, and then forge their own path home. We need to embody the Cherokee concept of Gadugi, working together toward a common goal that benefits the entire community. This is Miss Helen. She's blind. She's the last Lovelock Paiute speaker. I just recently went to meet with her. All around Indian country, our Indigenous languages are at risk of being lost. I can't tell you how many women I've met like Miss Helen. Man, I had this dream. I was on a subway in Seattle, which is how I knew I was dreaming. And there was people to my left arguing in Lakota about Trump and Barack Obama. And there was people to my right eating fast food, wild Anishinaabe rice, speaking in Anishinaabe about changing the local downtown scene. And there was people talking in Dene about changing our education system so that everybody would speak Dene. And and you know, I woke up in tears because I thought to myself, it's never gonna happen. And then I had to smudge myself off and realize that if I don't believe that it's possible for our white brothers and sisters to learn our languages, for our own people to establish systems where we can relearn our languages, for us to actually acknowledge that there is an indigenous land, history, intelligence that is here and among us that is worth saving, protecting, and learning. If I don't believe that, then who will? 3 years ago, I'm almost done, I promise. I'm sorry, Shelly, 1 minute. 3 years ago, I left my job, family, and home to begin traveling for Project 562, a multi-year creative expedition dedicated to photographing over 562 federally recognized tribes in the United States. To date, I have traveled to over 250 tribes in 47 states, taking nearly 800 portraits and collecting each person's history. I realize to some that this is very radical. And rad young folks of Harvard, before I say anything else about the purpose of today's lecture, let me say this. I hope that the stories that I've shared with you will inspire you to go on an adventure, especially for you young ladies. I read something of Gloria Steinem's newest novel that rocked my world. She said, thanks to molecular archaeology, which includes the study of ancient DNA to trace human movement over time, we now know that men have been the stay-at-homes and women have been the travelers. The rate of intercontinental migration for women is about 8 times that for men. However, these journeys have often been unchosen one-way trips in cultures that were patriarchal and patrilocal. That is, women were under male control and also went to live in their husbands' households. In the face of all the dire and often accurate warnings of danger on the road for women, it took modern feminism to ask the rock-bottom question, compared to what? Whether it be by dowry murders in India, honor killings in Egypt, domestic violence in the United States, records show that women are most likely to be beaten or killed at home and by men they know. Statistically speaking, home is an even more dangerous place for women than on the road. Perhaps the most revolutionary act for women will be a self-willed journey and then be welcomed when she comes home. Nothing can sum my experience better. We need to see one another. We need to hear from one another with an open heart and an open mind. We need to learn from one another. Someone says, "You can't survive the storm." And you turn and say, "Baby, I am the storm." Thank you.
Special thanks to our panelists. I think there are a few things that really strengthen me in the work that I do, besides my own family, my children, very supportive and loving elders, but very powerful youth. And I want everyone to give a very, very special, again, round of applause to Frank, because he's a healer, and as much as we'd like to keep him here, he's got to go someplace else and heal some other Native youth who are probably desperately waiting for him to arrive. Frank, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
And now, as you are not bombarding him as he has to leave, he actually does have to go catch a flight, we will open to a few minutes of questions. So if you have a question, the microphone is in the middle. Please come forward.
Shauna Manning from UMass Boston. I wanted to ask Kristiana, when is your new book coming out?
Thank you for that question.
I wasn't planning either.
I'm not sure. I'm not finished with it yet. This year at Radcliffe has been an incredible year of working on it. So I'm hoping in a few years it'll be done. I'm hoping soon.
Soon? Oh, you mean
Yeah.
like years, though?
Yeah, I know. The look at so it takes about 2 years to get a book published from the moment your editor gets what you think is the final manuscript, and then the edits, and then the everything else. So I'd love to be done with it a year from now, and then that's another 2 years till it's on your local indie bookstore's bookshelf. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. I really enjoyed all of your presentation.
Hi, my name is Shelly Anelani. I'm Kanaka Maoli. I'm born and raised from California, so that really resonated with me. I just graduated from Wellesley College last year, so my question is more so for Native students. I guess for me, being Kanaka Maoli and going to a college and where there was no Native presence, but coming in as Kanaka, and how hard that was for me to kind of like integrate, because I feel like that story is really removed, and I really appreciate like you taking photos. I'm really curious on your creative process when you were going through undergrad and even like grad school, how writing or whatever that was that helped you get through all those painful times or feeling like an outcast.
Yeah, that's a lot. First of all, ho'omakai on your graduation. And second of all, at Princeton, I wasn't myself. I mean, I was myself, but I didn't know who I was. And so those years what that was about to me was getting a lot of inputs and trying on a lot of different selves, and none of them fit. And it was really uncomfortable, and it was really hard. I am very grateful to my parents and my family for sending me there, because you learn a lot when you're uncomfortable for so long. I'm also really grateful for going to Michigan, where I finally found people who knew how to really how to teach me to be me, and not be afraid of that. I think that's something, with Matika's images, with Frank's songs. I'm really jealous. I am actually like the oldest of the three of us, which is, like, I'm never the oldest in a group of people. I'm always the baby, but today I'm the oldest. And I bring that up because I think I'm really, in some ways, jealous, but that's really a deep admiration for them knowing themselves sooner than I did. And so Michigan was the place, again, that I found teachers. I found teachers who are going to teach me how to be me in this big world, and who are going to support me, and they still do, to be an indigenous person, a Kanaka Maoli, wherever I was, even if I wasn't on island.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ivana Yi. I'm a graduate student here, and I study Korean and Native American oral traditions and literature. Thank you so much, Tiana and Matika, for your beautiful and very moving presentations. This question is actually for Matika. I was just so amazed that you have undergone this epic journey to 562 plus now, right? Nations. And I wanted to ask, how important is it for you to physically travel to each of these places to do your work?
I think it's really important that we meet people in spaces where they feel comfortable. And for me, the reason for going to people's places, because I'm trying really hard to practice indigenous photography methods, which is, as a photographer, we don't ask how I can advance my own career with somebody else's image, or how I can sell somebody else's agenda, but rather, how can I make myself useful to the people that I'm photographing? And when I arrive in a new place, the reason I go to their place is because it's their place, and I get to be the guest, and I ask them, how would you like to be photographed, and where would you like to be photographed? Where do you feel most comfortable? What best tells your story? Yesterday, we talked about it. Where would you have your portrait made? And I think for our people, that's within our indigenous homelands, our indigenous territories, and it's important that I make myself available in that way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, my name is Elaine Breslow, and I am just blown away. I feel such hope, such gratitude, such emotion to find the next generation doing something, moving our conversation closer to change, not just in legislation, which we heard a lot about today, but in human contact and conversation. And there is a lot out there through culture, through art, I think, that moves us one step closer in a way that all the other avenues do not. You've clearly demonstrated that. I hope that Frank and each of you reach out to the Upstander Project and Dawnland, 2 films that are being in post-production now, for your voices to chime in on that. And just hope that everyone here knows that there's something each and every one of us can do just by attending things like this and listening to your work. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I want to remind everyone here that Matika Wilbur has an exhibition going on right now in Byerly Hall. It's 2 buildings over. If you have not yet had a chance to look at it, we encourage you to do so. It is open today, and it will be open until May 28th. We are, guess what, almost back on time. So we're going to take a 10-minute break and come back for our last and final panel, which is all, again, hella cool. So.